model. And the last topic which we are going to focus mainly on SQL and PLSQL. So SQL is playing very important role in interviews. The interviewer may ask good number of questions on mainly joins and constraints and subqueries and functions. So this is the main area where examiner is going to focus or interviewer is going to focus. So before we learn into the depth of the knowledge, first of all, let us focus on to its basic key features of SQL. As we know, SQL is structured query language. SQL also known as non-procedural language. This is very important. SQL is not a procedural language, it is a non-procedural language. And SQL structured query language is in the form of commands. We need to have an interface and environment to execute these commands. So that interface is known as SQL star plus. So SQL star plus is required and SQL commands are required. These SQL commands are going to be performed on SQL star plus. And SQL star plus not only environment, it also provides some commands which are mainly used for screen editing, like clear screen, set server output on, and increase row size and column sizes, and describe. These are all the commands which are basically for SQL star plus editing side, and SQL commands are mainly meant for in order to deal with the database. So why there is requirement of structured query language is structured query language is one of the languages which is try to interact with the DBMS. So the only one language which can able to interact with the DBMS is what? SQL only. SQL is try to bring the data from the database. Therefore, it is an interface between a user and to your database. So SQL is going to be an interface between the two. User will give you SQL commands. Those SQL commands send a request to the database, and the database is going to give output to the users. That's why SQL is the ultimate language which try to deal with the database. And I told you few important points, that is SQL is non-procedural. We will not write any kind of a procedures otherwise. Just we will give a command and try to see that output is coming or not. We don't write any procedure like begin and some process and the end. That's not at all there. It's only simple language. If you give the command, the answer will be given. Point number 2, SQL is responsive. And point number 3, SQL is not case sensitive. Point number 4, SQL is in the form of commands. Point number 5, SQL commands cannot be abbreviated. Point number 6, SQL commands must be terminated. Point number 7, SQL commands are executed by an interface known as SQL plus. So SQL plus has commands for editing. Editors. Okay, now let us see what are SQL commands. The SQL commands for a data definition language and SQL commands for data manipulation language and SQL commands are for data control language and SQL commands are for transaction control language and SQL commands are for data retrieval language. So commands are being separated based on their importance. Okay, copy this. Yeah, well friends, so how these commands are having its own role in real time. So the first one is data definition language. So the data definition language is used for defining the schemas. So there are some important commands in the data definition language. What are they? We will see it now. So what is a data definition language? Write a point. These commands are used for defining or modifying or removing schemas. defining or modifying or removing schemas. Next point. Data definitions are stored in data dictionary. Next point. A data dictionary stores the definitions of objects. Stores the definitions of objects. Next point. The use of data dictionary is to display the object definitions. We know that every object has its own data dictionary. Okay. For example, view, sequence, cluster, tables, users. These are all objects. These object definitions are stored in data dictionaries. So what the data dictionary has, it stores the metadata. That is the meaning of data dictionaries. For example, I can use like this: select star from tab and select asterisk from user underscore constraints and select asterisk from user underscore views. These are all data dictionaries which try to store metadata of objects. So come to the point, what are the DDL commands? DDL commands are create, rename, alter, truncate, drop. These are the major commands are for DDL commands. How they are useful, we will look at. Copy this. So the commands which are there for DDL can be executed on any object. So DDL commands can be for any objects like data objects, or can also be for system objects. So what are data objects? Table, view, sequence, dot dot. What are system object? Role, user, public synonym, etc. So for anything you can use DDL commands. Now I will use the mainly DDL commands for tables, because as interviewer mainly focus on data object like table only. What is the syntax? Create table, table name, column name, data type, default, column constraints. Next, column name, same. Next, table constraints. Next, as subquery. This is the structure of create table command. Now I want to go for a small example. Create a table, department, department number, number is the data type, and a D name, varchar 2 of 10. That's it. Once you just press enter, and what will happen? You will get a message called the table created. Now how do you know whether table is created or not? You can ask desk department. What the desk stands for? It is nothing but describe department. It displays structure of table. Okay, just copy this. What are the data types are there? We will see now. Now let us see what are the data types are there. The data types are, start with a number. Number, character, varchar, varchar2, date, long, blob, clob, bfile, row. Okay friends, this is a number, this character, this is a fixed length. These two are variable length. And this is store use data, similar to varchar. And the blob and clob is for long objects. So bfile stores file name pointer. Row, it stores row number. So in that, the very important point is that what is the limitation of long? Long limitation. Only one long data type is allowed. Only one long data type per table is allowed. Next, other long. What is other long? Long data type column must not be used in order by and where clause. So these are the two limitations of that. Okay. Now the another example is rename. So what is the meaning of rename? Renaming of table. So the syntax is rename old table name to new table name. This is rename. What is the next one? Drop. Remove the object. What is the syntax? Drop table name. Okay friends, just copy see. We'll see some examples. Yeah, well friends, now let us see how to use for example, I have created employee table, create table employee, employee number is the data type. Now I want to rename. How to rename it? Rename EMP to employee. Now the table is renamed. Now I want to drop. How to drop? Drop table employee. That's it. Table is removed. This is how you have to use them. And the last command is truncate. So what is the meaning of a truncate? Truncate is used to remove the data. Truncate is used to remove data. So therefore, how to use this? Truncate table, table name. So what is the example? Truncate table employee. That's it. Entire data is going to be deleted. So you may get a doubt. What is the difference between drop and truncate? The difference between drop and truncate is drop is used to remove table space and truncate is used to remove what? Data. But structure remains. Therefore, we can reinsert data. But whereas here what is going to happen? Structure plus data is deleted. Therefore, you have to recreate the table if you wish to continue. Okay friends, so these are the 5 important commands. The last important command is alter table. What is the meaning of alter table? Modify the schema. Syntax: alter table, table name. You can use several options. Add column, modify column, rename column, add constraint, or drop constraint, disable or enable constraints, and set unused. So these are all the different options you can make use of with the alter table. How to do that? We will see now. Just copy. Yeah, well friends, what is alter table command? So, alter table, for example, you see employee is a table which is created with employee number. Number is the data type. Now I want to add a column into employee. So how to do this? I can use alter table employee add employee name varchar 2. So after creating this, if you look at employee table now, the employee table has two columns now, employee number and the second one employee name. Now I want to modify the data type. How to modify the data type? Modify data type of ENO to varchar. So what is the command I want to give now? Alter table employee modify is the keyword. Modify, what is the column name? Employee number. Just write it's a new data type. So this is how to modify data type. I want to drop the column. Drop column. How to drop column? Again, alter table employee drop column, for example ename. Therefore that column is dropped. I want to rename the column. So how to rename the column? Once again, alter table employee rename, for example employee number to employee underscore number. So after this, your employee table would look like what? Employee underscore number. And the next one is add constraint. How to add a constraint? Alter table EMP or employee add constraint primary key to employee underscore number. This is how you can attach constraints even after creation of the table. Okay. Now I want to drop the constraint. How to drop the constraint? Same. Alter table employee drop constraint. What is the constraint name you're supposed to know to drop? So to drop the constraint, you're supposed to know the name of the constraint. That's why you have to write the constraint name here. I say employee underscore primary key underscore ENO. This is your constraint name. So use the constraint name. Drop constraint. What is the constraint name? This is the constraint name. Employee underscore PK underscore employee number. Therefore, the particular constraint is dropped. So adding a constraint requires constraint name. Dropping a constraint requires a constraint name. This is your constraint name, and the same constraint can be used for dropping also. Okay friends, just copy this. Yeah, well friends, now how to do enable and disable constraints. So instead of dropping, I can go for enable or disable constraints. Again, to do this, what is required? Constraint name is required. What is the command? Once again, come back, alter table, employee. What is that? Constraint. emp underscore pk underscore envo. Either use enable or disable. Okay. This is how about DDL commands. Fine. Now we will look at into data manipulation language. Before we enter into data manipulation language, I want to tell you the very important point. What is that? Every DDL command is commit oriented. That means automatically database reaches to consistent state. This is what is the meaning of DDL command nature. They are commit nature oriented commands. Once you give the command, automatically the database reaches to consistent. All the previous commands or transactions which are there before the DDL command automatically committed. Data manipulation language, there are mainly three, that is insert, delete and update. So what the insert command is going to do? Insert is used to create a row space. This is insert command. So what is the syntax? Insert into table name. You want to write the columns, you can write individual columns also. Columns, values, value 1, value 2, etc. You can write any number of columns here. You can also use as subquery. What is a subquery? I will tell you now. For example, we have to take a small database, department table, DNO, DNAME. Two columns are there. I want to insert data into that. So how to insert data? Insert into DEPT, values 10, sales. Once again, insert into DEPT, values 20, accounts. So you will get here 20, accounts. So what is the meaning of insert into as a subquery? For example, this is mainly for duplication. How that is to be done, we will see in next example. Let's copy up to this. You see that? This is a very important note. Yeah, how to use insert as a subquery. Insert as a subquery. So what I want to do here, insert into DEPT1. So another table you assume DEPT1. Let DEPT1 has same structure like DEPT. Now I want to copy data from DEPT to DEPT1. How to copy? Let DEPT1 has same structure like DEPT. How? DEPT1 also has dnumber, dname, and DEPT also has dnumber and dname. This has 10 sales and 20 accounts. This data I want to dump into this. So how to do? Insert into DEPT1 as select asterisk from DEPT. That's it. So here what happened? The entire data is copied into this.